And the motion that was put down by Andy Burnham and Ed Miliband has already had an impact, and that shows that the two wings of the movement working together can get victories even in this difficult time. And I just want to say one other thing. My constituency, Ilford South, includes King George Hospital. On the end of this week, on the 7th of March, they are going to rubber stamp the getting rid of all maternity at King George Hospital in Ilford. And they still have plans, despite all the reports and all the problems about the pressure on the NHS in North East London, they still plan to close our accident and emergency. And we are still fighting for our services, for our community, and for the National Health Service. And we will continue to do so because this dysfunctional right-wing government will not get their way in the long term. We will save our NHS.
Yeah. I said, will you? I would have thought a very simple and reasonable question. If you go ahead with this, and if you try and close our A&E departments, and then try and replace them with these completely inadequate urgent care centres, most of which are run by private companies now, or by these out-of-hours services like Harmony, some of which are under investigation now for the way they performed in their staffing levels, as you already said. If you're going to go through that process, which we're obviously all here to stop, will you at least do this? Will you at least say that the people making those decisions, these clinical commissioning groups who take over from the 1st of April, should not have any vested financial interest in the companies, or indeed any private companies, who may be bidding for those? Was that an unreasonable question? I didn't think so. What he said was, I'm sorry, there are sufficient protections in place. And I know what those protections are because I've FOI'd them as part of this process. There's a little form they fill in, scribble in the margin whether they have any shares, and it says at the top of the form you're supposed to declare the value of your shareholding and the type of shareholding and the organisation, and most of them do not. And when I've asked for that information, it's not been forthcoming. I can't believe, even in many of the other privatisations and the other areas that this government's got involved, that would be acceptable. That's the depth of depravity that these matters go to. It's not just about privatisation, it's about who's making money out of privatisation, and it's about the processes they're going through. They are all as dishonest as each other. And so the answer today, yes, I'm glad they're going to redraft the regulation, and I'm glad they've admitted that they're incompetent. It's not going to win the battle. This is the first chapter in that.
What we want? No to privatisation. 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 Whose NHS? Our NHS. Whose NHS? Our NHS. What's happening in Parliament is obviously important, but I think we have to recognise that the real impetus to defeat this bill is actually coming from our communities and from our workplaces.
I've been working in Hammersmith and Shepherd's Bush as a community nurse for the last 25 years, and believe me, I really care about community care. I think it's very important that where people can be cared for at home, it's the best thing. But what's happening across Britain, and particularly in London, from King George's to Charing Cross to Ealing, the Whittington, etc., etc., is the moves to close casualties and maternity units and replace them with urgent care is not about improving care in people's homes. It's about making massive financial cuts. And I think it's really important that we get that message that this is not clinically driven, this is financially driven. The other thing I think that's really important to say is that actually an NHS that's publicly funded and publicly run is actually a very efficient and effective way of running a health service. I think we need to start defending that and being really on the offensive about it, because actually when you look at the stats in terms of proportion of GNP spent and outcomes, we're actually a very efficient system. And the problem is the rules like Section 75 that open everything to the market, absolutely untried, no evidence that it's effective, actually evidence that it's ineffective. And I think the reason why is because if you are a doctor, a GP or a senior nurse, what you ought to be doing is looking after patients and planning their care. What you ought not to be doing is messing about with markets and trying to win this contract and that kind of thing. It's actually a deflection, it's a waste of resources, and it actually makes us less efficient. There is a clinical and good evidence about that, and that's what I think we should be concentrating on. The events like the Whittington event on the 16th, the Ealing March on the 27th, the Defend London's NHS March on the 18th of May are all important. We ought to support them all. Yeah. That's the kind of comprehensive, clear message we need to give. So I hope to see you on them all. Thank you.
Friends, comrades, this battle is being fought on many, many simultaneous fronts. At the moment, as we've heard, poor Norman Lamb, the sacrificial lamb, as he is now known, was sent in the place of the shrinking, cowering coward Hunt. He was forced there to the dispatch box by Andy Burnham to admit the reality of this overt policy of privatisation contained within Clause 75. And in addition to that, Ealing Council last night referring the matter up to the Independent Tribunal and ultimately to the Secretary of State. But none of this would have any validity, none of this would have any energy, none of this would have any strength without people power on the streets, without your voices being heard, without you as the force behind everything there. Because have we really come to this when we are approaching an Americanization of health, where in this country we were always proud, if you go to an A&E department, the only question you should be asked is, where does it hurt? In America, the only question you ask is, do you have your checkbook with you? And if your check bounces, they rip the stitches out. Well, to hell with that! That's not the way to bring a nation together. That's not the way to bring a world together. That is the way to divide on the basis of wealth and individual privilege. And every single one of you has shown that you care enough to come out today. Your voice, your energy, your strength will be felt in there, in Ealing Town Hall, in Lewisham, in the Whittington, in Ealing on the 27th.
April. Oh gosh, yeah. Carry on.
I'm sorry, I spotted a copy of the Daily Mail being carried. But we must not abandon this fight at this time, because, comrades, the tide is with us. Because our cause is just. Our NHS is exactly that. Our National Health Service.
Speaker is Phil Rose. He's from the Unite the Union. He's an organiser for health, and so give him a big welcome.
6 months ago I was going to meetings of about 10-20 people. Now we're going to meetings of 500 and 600 people. Things are turning, and it started at Lewisham and it's going to the Whittington, and Ealing and West London are getting involved. And more hospitals in London and more people in London are becoming aware of what's happening to their healthcare. Right. We've heard the MPs speak, and good luck, and we're grateful for their support, but it's their support, it's us who does it, and we need to get out there and campaign. Unite has made it clear their commitment to this campaign by appointing a campaign officer to do this, to unify everyone, and Unite is putting money into supporting the campaigners. We need to get out there and fight to save NHS across the country, but at this moment in London. There's a march on the 18th of May for a London-wide demonstration, right? Please get out there and support it. Other actions are being planned. You've heard some of them. Other actions are being planned. There is a build-up going on. You need to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to say how fantastic it is to see you all here, and to say what strength I think so many of us derive from the fact that there's such strong support out there saying very loudly and very clearly we want no privatisation of the NHS. My inbox has got hundreds and hundreds of emails from you and many others, and I'm delighted that you are writing to all MPs making really clear that the NHS is massively precious, that we don't want to sell it off, that we don't want it transferred for profit for private companies, we want it in public hands for public use, and that is what we want MPs to stand for. Now, Secretary of State Lansley last year went on the parliamentary record saying there is absolutely absolutely nothing in this bill that promotes or permits the transfer of NHS activities to the private sector. Now, I know you're not supposed to say of your parliamentary colleagues that they're lying, but friends, they were lying. It was an outright lie, and we can see that now with this Section 75 regulation that the government tried to smuggle through on the order paper a few weeks ago. And I'm very pleased that I was the first MP to put down a motion to say that we ought to be opposing that.
That once we put the pressure on any system, the system do respond. And today we have seen it, that once the community pressure is there, the government has to think seriously to review the 75 clause. One thing, we can't say today that it is over. It's not over. We should continue our fight until it is clear that our hospitals are safe.
Yep.
These marches will carry on until the government responds to our demands. The demand is save our A&Es and other sections of every hospital in that West London. Thank you very much for coming today. Make sure that you convey the message. It's not that what we say here. You have to tell your friends that we will get hundreds of thousands of people. In Ealing Hospital, we get 100,000 people attending A&E every year.
We are at a critical time now, very critical, because if this secondary legislation goes through, we have a privatized, dismantled, disrupted health service, and we become tied in to EU competition law, and that is very serious. What we need is a health service that is integrated, cooperative, collaborative across the whole section, and democratically accountable.
But keep following the Save Lewisham Hospital website and the Save Lewisham Hospital Facebook page, because we will be organising a mass lobby later this month, because it's really key we do something now to save our NHS. Usually that scrutiny committee receive about 10 emails about a specific case. Within a day, the Save Lewisham Hospital campaign managed to get 4,000 letters of complaints about these regulations sent to that scrutiny committee, which are now meeting now with that in mind, and bearing in mind that we're here right now as well.
And now for companies, the private sector sleeps are having a lovely time today. The public sector wages freeze, and lots of jobs for them to take away. We won't let our service die. You told a lie, that's why we're making a lot of noise. Your time is up, Grim Reaper is coming to take you all away, because you're sick little Tory boys.